Like, one of the things I try and teach my kids more than anything is not particular political opinions. I never try to instill in them any particular belief. If they come home and start espousing an idea, whether I agree with it or not, I'm going to automatically interrogate it Socratically, like offer arguments against it, because I want them to learn how to really think critically. That's all I care about. Wherever that takes them is where it takes them. But the idea that people are going to tell them in advance they don't have the right to engage in critical thinking, that because of their skin color or their race, they're duty bound to embrace an ideology that has been laid out for them, and that they don't have a choice. And if they don't agree with those ideas that they're told they have to by virtue of their race, that means they're sick and they're racist. This is so offensive to the whole idea of human autonomy and our capacity to think critically. And yet it was at the center of so much woke liberal discourse, and it's at the center, and long has been at the center, of pro-Israel discourse as well. And it sickens me. And one of the reasons it sickens me is because it's so blatantly deceitful. And this has become part of the orthodoxy, that if you don't believe in Zionism as an ideology, which again is about 110 years old, Jews lived for thousands of years without Zionism. And as a result, there are huge numbers of Jews who don't support Zionism. I mean, religious Jews, Orthodox Jews. We've had Orthodox rabbis on our show who think Zionism is heretical, that it's an affront to Judaism, because Judaism is about the Jewish people, not the idea of a nation state. These are debatable ideas like anyone else. And calling people anti-Semitic because they don't accept the prescribed view is just the same tactic as a lot of leftists used to use, or still do use, by screaming racist or misogynist or whatever at anybody who doesn't agree with them, as a way of bullying them into accepted ideas. And the ADL is now the leader of this.
The holidays, I'm warning you now, they will be here before you even know it. And for many families, that means excitement and a little stress. Between gifts and travel and higher prices, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, especially if you're already relying on credit cards to cover the basics. If that debt is piling up, you're not alone. If you're a homeowner, you might have considered reaching out to American Financing, but hesitated because you don't want to give up your low mortgage rate. That's why American Financing created Smart Equity Loan, a simple, smart way to get your finances back on track without giving up a low mortgage rate. Unlike a HELOC, which can fluctuate with the market, the Smart Equity Loan offers a fixed rate. So you'll have one predictable monthly payment. It lets you use your home's equity to pay off high interest debt, free up your cash flow, and keep your existing mortgage intact. There are no upfront fees. To find out if you qualify, 866-889-1994. That's 866-889-1994, or visit americanfinancing.net/Greenwald.
Here is Jonathan Greenblatt on MSNBC. This is October of 2023, where he's basically saying that Zionism is the obligation of every Jew.
But anti-Zionism, I've long said, is anti-Semitism. I was wrong. Anti-Zionism is genocide. And what I mean is, if you so dehumanize Zionists, by the way, every Jewish person is a Zionist.
Every Jewish person is Zionist. It's so weird, because I interviewed Orthodox Jews. I hear from them all the time, by the way. They want to come back on the show. I think we're going to put them on because they don't get enough of a hearing. And these are like Jews. These are Jews. These aren't atheist Jews. These are religious Jews with all the trappings of being an Orthodox Jew, the hat and the hair curls and the whole package. And they despise Zionism. And here's this seemingly secular Jonathan Greenblatt saying that you can't be a Jew if you're not a Zionist. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. The reason they're pushing this so hard is because it's not just that public support among Americans for Israel is unraveling, but public support for Israel among Jews is unraveling as well, especially younger Jews. Here from the Washington Post, October 6, 2005, quote, many American Jews sharply critical of Israel on Gaza, poll finds. Quote, a significant minority of American Jews agree with the UN's panel's conclusion. In the poll, respondents were told that the UN defines genocide as, quote, acts committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, religious, or racial group, asked whether they thought Israel had committed genocide in Gaza, 39% of Jews said yes, 51% no, and 10% had no opinion. If almost 40% of American Jews are saying that Israel committed genocide, it's not that hard to see why people like Jonathan Greenblatt and the ADL are in a panic mode. Here from Pew Research in April of 2024, and all of these trends have gotten much worse over the last year. U.S. Jews 18 to 34 are divided over whether Israel's response to Hamas' October 7th attack is acceptable. 42% of Jews between the ages of 18 and 34 believe Israel's response to October 7th is, quote, unacceptable. And this is just 6 months after the October 7th attack, not like 2 years later when huge numbers of people are horrified by what Israel has done, including huge numbers of Jews. As we pointed out many times, the student protest encampments that were widely vilified as being anti-Semitic were often organized by Jews, led by Jews, composed of Jews. We interviewed some of the Jewish leaders and Muslim leaders of these camps. The one in Colombia, which was among the most controversial, had so many Jewish students in the encampment that every Friday night they had Shabbat dinner, which everybody attended inside the encampment. All the Jew haters were having Shabbat dinner. Here's one of the anti-Zionist Orthodox rabbis we interviewed. His name is Israel David Weiss. We had him on the show in June of 2024. And here's what he said about Jews and Zionism.
The ones who are the personification of anti-Semitism is Zionism and their state. In fact, the new edition of the dictionaries should have the definition of anti-Semitism, Zionism, and the state of Israel. They've caused a hate of Jews, an exacerbation of anti-Semitism, a view of Jews as inhumane, committing genocide. It is all purely the diametric opposite of what Judaism is, and what Jews around the world who are hurting and feeling and crying with the people of Palestine, and our voices are not heard. And when the students who get up on the campuses in throughout the United States and in Europe, who many thousands and thousands of them are Jews, and a lot of them are being led by Jews, they're simply removed from their positions. They're thrown out of schools. And there's laws, new laws with ingenuity being developed that there's such a concept of democracy, and they skirt the issue of democracy and accuse anybody who speaks up against the Zionist onslaught, against Zionism, as being anti-Semitic. Again, it's an insult to intelligence, and it should not be accepted. And we plead with the world leaders that they should please respect, as you would respect the Pope and the priests when it comes to Christianity, and the imams and ayatollahs when it comes to the issues of Islam. You should respect the voice of our rabbis who stood from day one in Palestine and those communities and pleaded with the leadership of the United Nations, and who are living throughout the world, the very religious communities like we are in New York, the very religious ones who give their lives for the religion. We have our private schooling. It costs us fortunes. We give our lives for our religion. These are the ones invariably who are opposed to this occupation. We are opposed to what's happening in Gaza. Respect that, and they should stop and desist what is the assistance to the Zionists in their mass murder, and the torture of the people of Gaza. We plead with them, respect our voice, respect the voice of humanity around the world who are pleading, and do not be ensnared in this Zionist intimidation that you will be accused of being anti-Semitic.
Amen, brother. Now, there are a lot of things you can say about that guy. Questioning the authenticity of whether he's a Jew is not among them. And I'm not saying this is the majority of Jews, but it's also not some like bizarre aberration or some tiny trivial minority. Jewish anti-Zionism is substantial and growing. It's not the majority, but it is far from trivial. And if the ADL wants to go around saying that Jews are duty-bound for some reason to embrace this ideology called Zionism, I think they're going to have a really hard time. Just to underscore the point, Albert Einstein, whose Judaism I think was also extremely difficult to question, was a vocal anti-Zionist. In the mid to late 1940s, after World War II and the Holocaust, when the question of Israel and Zionism was being debated, he was outspoken in his opposition to what a Zionist state in the Middle East would entail. This is part of a letter he wrote. I believe this was to the New York Times. We'll check on that, but it's dated January 21st, 1946. He wrote, quote, "I am in favor of Palestine being developed as a Jewish homeland, but not as a separate state. It seems to me a matter of simple common sense that we cannot ask to be given the political rule over Palestine, where 2/3 of the population are not Jewish. What we can and should ask is a secured binational status in Palestine with free immigration. If we ask more, we are damaging our own cause. And it is difficult for me to grasp that our Zionists are taking such an intransigent position, which can only impair our cause." Hannah Arendt was a German Jewish philosopher, very highly regarded, especially in the mid-20th century. And in May 1984, here's what she said about Zionism. She wrote, quote, "Palestine Jewry would eventually separate itself from the larger body of world Jewry and in its isolation develop into an entirely new people. Thus, it becomes plain that at this moment and under present circumstances, a Jewish state can only be erected at the price of a Jewish homeland." And then here is Rav Yoel Teitelbaum in 1961, who was a Satmar Rebbe. He said, quote, "Zionism is the greatest form of spiritual impurity. They have polluted the Jewish people with their heresy. If we place all the immodesty and promiscuity of the generation and the many sins of the world on one side of the scale, and the Zionist state on the other side of the scale by itself, it would outweigh them all." He hated Zionism, and there was no questioning his authentic Jewishness.
Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.